Before the man learned who he was, he learned who he needed to be. A quiet child, observant, sensitive. He quickly understood that certain expressions were rewarded, while others were ignored or punished. So he smiled when he felt afraid. He agreed when he felt resistance. And slowly, unconsciously, he created a mask, not to deceive others, but to survive. Jung called this mask the persona, a social face, a necessary fiction. At first it worked. The more perfectly he wore the mask, the more the world applauded. Teachers praised him. Peers accepted him. Authority figures trusted him. But each reward came at a cost. Every time he silenced an impulse, every time he swallowed anger, every time he denied sadness, something real was pushed deeper into the unconscious. The mask grew stronger. The man grew quieter. Years passed. The mask no longer felt like something he wore. It felt like who he was. Professional, reliable, respected. Yet alone, in moments without distraction, a strange emptiness appeared. Not pain, not sadness, just absence. Jung warned, when the persona becomes too perfect, the soul starves. The unconscious does not stay silent forever. Fatigue arrived first, then irritability, then dreams, strange, disturbing dreams. In them, the man was chased, or exposed, or standing naked before an audience that suddenly stopped applauding. The mask began to crack. Visual prompt. What had been denied now demanded recognition. Anger he never expressed surfaced as rage. Sadness he never felt became despair. Desires he never acknowledged emerged as obsession. Jung called this the shadow, everything the ego refused to accept. The man did not recognize himself anymore. And so he blamed the world. Unable to face his own darkness, he saw it everywhere else. In co-workers, in partners, in strangers. They were arrogant. They were selfish. They were wrong. The mask protected him from shame, but imprisoned him in blindness. One day the mask failed. A mistake, a confrontation, a loss. The identity he had built could no longer hold. Panic followed. Then numbness. Then a terrifying question. If I'm not this mask, who am I? Without the persona, there was silence. No script. No applause. No role to perform. Depression is not always sadness. Sometimes it is the collapse of a false identity. Jung believed this emptiness was not an illness, but a doorway. For the first time, he stopped running. He listened. To dreams. To fantasies. To forgotten memories. Images arose. A neglected child. An abandoned voice. A self that had waited patiently in darkness. The mask had not protected him. It had postponed him. Instead of fighting the shadow, he spoke to it. What do you want? What do you protect? What do you fear? And slowly, hostility turned into understanding. The shadow was not evil. It was wounded. The mask did not need to be destroyed. It needed to be removed consciously. The man learned when to wear it, and when to set it down. Persona became a tool, not a prison. This was not enlightenment. It was responsibility. Wholeness is not perfection. It is inclusion. The man was still flawed, still uncertain, still human, but he was no longer split. Jung called this individuation, the long, lifelong task of becoming who you truly are. The world noticed little. No celebration followed. But something inside was finally at peace. No longer performing. No longer hiding. No longer disappearing. The mask had not eaten the man. The man had learned to take it off. The greatest danger is not that we wear a mask, but that we forget there is a face beneath it. Before the man knew his name, before he understood language, before he learned how the world worked, he learned something far more important. He learned what was allowed. A raised eyebrow, a sigh of disappointment, a smile of approval. These small signals shaped him more than words ever could. When he was quiet, he was praised. When he was agreeable, he was loved. When he was emotional, he was corrected. So he adjusted, not consciously, not maliciously, instinctively. A child does not choose survival strategies. They emerge. And slowly, a face began to form, not a face of flesh, but a face made of expectation. Carl Jung called it the persona, a mask created to meet the world. Necessary, protective, and dangerous if mistaken for the self. The boy learned timing, when to laugh, when to remain silent, when to hide disappointment behind politeness. Each success reinforced the mask. Each rejection sharpened it. He did not notice what was happening, but something inside him was slowly being pushed aside. Anger had no place. Fear was inconvenient. Desire was dangerous. These emotions did not disappear. They waited, buried beneath compliance, stored in the unconscious. The world saw a good child. The child felt unseen. As he grew older, the mask improved. Teachers admired him. Peers trusted him. Authority figures approved. Every reward confirmed the lesson. Be who they want and you will belong. So the mask became polished, convincing, reliable. Soon even he could not tell where it ended, and he began. This is the first danger Jung warned about. When the persona works too well, the real personality is neglected. The soul begins to starve quietly. Adulthood arrived with expectations already prepared. Career, stability, reputation. The mask stepped forward effortlessly. Professional, competent, dependable. Others admired his discipline. Inside, something felt absent. Not pain, not sadness, just a strange emptiness, like a room that had never been entered. He kept moving. The mask demanded momentum. Perfection has a price. The man became exhausted without knowing why, irritated without a cause, disconnected without explanation. Rest did not restore him. Success did not satisfy him. At night, when distractions faded, a quiet anxiety surfaced. Something inside him wanted attention. Jung wrote, "What we do not face in ourselves will appear as fate." And fate was approaching. The unconscious spoke first through dreams. In them, the man was exposed, unprepared, watched. Sometimes the mask slipped. Sometimes it shattered. He woke with a racing heart and no explanation. He ignored the dreams. Modern life teaches us to dismiss symbols. But symbols do not disappear when ignored. They grow louder. What had been denied now demanded recognition. Anger, long suppressed, returned as bitterness. Desire, long rejected, returned as obsession. Fear, long hidden, returned as anxiety. This was not madness. This was balance attempting to restore itself. Jung called this force the shadow. Everything the man had refused to be, everything the mask could not contain. The shadow did not arrive gently. It never does. Unable to accept his own darkness, the man saw it everywhere else. Others were arrogant. Others were selfish. Others were immoral. The shadow was projected outward. This is how the unconscious protects the ego, by making the problem external. But projection creates enemies, and enemies multiply suffering. The man felt surrounded, trapped, misunderstood. Two forces now fought within him. The mask demanded control. The shadow demanded truth. Sleep became shallow. Concentration fractured. Joy felt artificial. He began to fear himself. But this fear was a threshold. Jung believed that when the shadow appears, individuation has begun, whether the ego agrees or not. The mask had protected him for years. But now, it was suffocating him. And the shadow was no longer asking. It was knocking. The collapse did not arrive dramatically. There was no explosion. No single catastrophic event. Just a moment when the mask could no longer hold. A conversation that went wrong. A mistake that could not be hidden. A truth that slipped through the cracks. For the first time, the role failed. And with it, the man felt exposed. Panic followed quickly. Not fear of losing status, but fear of losing identity. If the mask no longer worked, what remained? His thoughts raced. His body tensed. Sleep disappeared. The ego was losing control, and the ego does not surrender quietly. Then it happened. The mask did not shatter. It slipped. Just enough. Enough for others to notice. Enough for him to see himself. The image he had protected for decades was revealed as fragile. Jung warned, when the persona breaks down, the individual feels unreal. This unreality was unbearable. The question arrived quietly. If I am not this, then who am I? No answer followed. Only silence. A silence so complete it felt like falling. This was not confusion. This was ego death. Without the mask, the man entered a void. No direction. No motivation. No desire to perform. This is where many turn back. They rebuild the persona quickly. Stronger, sharper, more convincing. But something in the man refused. The cost had been too high. So he stayed. This state had a name, depression, but Jung saw it differently, not as an enemy, but as a descent, a lowering of energy away from the false self, the psyche withdrawing its support from the mask. The man felt heavy, slowed, empty, but beneath the emptiness, something was forming. For the first time, the man stopped escaping. No distractions, no performances, no explanations. He listened, to thoughts that frightened him, to memories he avoided, to emotions long denied. Images rose uninvited, a lonely child, an angry voice, a neglected dream. The unconscious was opening. Jung called this process active imagination, not controlling images, but allowing them. The man imagined speaking to what arose. At first there was resistance, fear, shame, then curiosity. The psyche responded. The shadow did not appear as a monster. It appeared as a wound. Everything the man had rejected had been trying to protect something vital. Anger protected boundaries. Sadness protected meaning. Desire protected life. The shadow had waited patiently. Now it spoke. Behind the shadow was another presence. Quieter, deeper, unmoving, the self. Not the ego, not the mask, not the shadow, but the organizing center of the psyche. The man did not understand it, but he felt it. A sense of rightness, a gravity, a direction without words. The mask had collapsed. The shadow had spoken, and something deeper than both was beginning to awaken. The descent was not a failure. It was an initiation. Every descent must end, not because the darkness disappears, but because life demands participation. The man felt it quietly. A pull upward, not toward applause, not toward certainty, toward engagement. Jung warned that remaining in the unconscious too long leads not to wisdom, but to disintegration. So the man turned back, not to who he was, but to the world he had left behind. The mask returned, but it was different now. No longer fused to his face, no longer mistaken for his identity. It became what Jung intended the persona to be, a tool. The man learned when to wear it, and when to remove it. Authenticity did not mean exposure. It meant choice. Before, the man lived to be accepted. Now he lived to be responsible. Responsibility is heavier than performance. It offers no applause, no immediate reward, but it builds something stronger than admiration. Integrity. The man spoke when silence was easier, set boundaries when approval was tempting, acted despite discomfort. The shadow no longer controlled him. It informed him. Jung believed the psyche seeks balance, not purity. Strength without compassion becomes cruelty. Compassion without strength becomes weakness. The man learned to hold opposites. Confidence and doubt. Discipline and rest. Individuality and belonging. This was not harmony. It was tension made conscious. The change became visible in relationships. The man no longer demanded others carry his shadow. He recognized his anger as his own, his insecurity as his responsibility, his desire as something to understand, not obey. Conflict softened, listening deepened. Love became possible, not as fantasy, but as reality. Work no longer defined him. Failure did not annihilate him. Success did not inflate him. The mask served its purpose during the day. At night it rested. For the first time, the man slept without fear of being exposed. Integration did not end the journey. It made the journey possible. Jung called this individuation, not becoming perfect, but becoming whole. The man understood now. The shadow would return. The mask would be tempting. The unconscious would speak again. And that was not a problem. It was life. He did not transcend his humanity. He accepted it. And in doing so, he became free enough to live it fully. Nothing announced the change. No celebration followed. No one applauded. No voice declared victory. Life simply continued. The man woke up, went to work, spoke to others, returned home. But something fundamental had shifted. He was no longer waiting to be seen. There was a silence now, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of completion. The man no longer filled every moment with explanation or defense. He did not need to justify himself. The absence of applause felt strange at first, then peaceful. The shadow did not disappear. It never does. But when it returned, it no longer arrived as an enemy. It came as a signal, a reminder of imbalance, a call to reflection. The man listened, and the shadow softened. There were moments when the old mask tempted him, when approval felt easier than honesty, when silence felt safer than truth. Sometimes he failed, but failure no longer shattered him. He returned to himself, again and again. That was the work now. The most important moments happened unseen. A boundary set quietly, a truth spoken gently, a decision made alone, no audience, no reward, just alignment. Jung believed meaning was not something found, but something lived. The man was no longer exceptional. He was human, capable of anger, capable of compassion, capable of error, and capable of responsibility. This ordinariness was not a loss. It was freedom. The greatest danger was never wearing the mask. The danger was forgetting there was a face beneath it. The shadow was never the enemy. The enemy was unconsciousness, and wholeness was never perfection. It was honesty, lived quietly, without applause. Individuation did not make life easier. It made it clearer. The man still woke with doubts, still felt resistance, still encountered moments where the old mask reached for his face. The difference was subtle. He noticed. Awareness did not eliminate struggle. It transformed struggle into dialogue, and dialogue into choice. Sometimes, without warning, the old patterns returned. A familiar tension in the chest, a desire to impress, a fear of disapproval. The psyche does not move in straight lines. It spirals. Jung understood this deeply. Progress was never permanent, only renewable. There were moments of loneliness, not isolation, but separation, when the man realized he could no longer fully belong to crowds driven by performance, status, or illusion. This loneliness was not pathological. It was the cost of consciousness. And within it, there was peace. Something unexpected happened. Others began to speak differently around him, not because he advised them, but because he listened. Wholeness has weight. It creates space. The man did not save anyone. He did not teach. He contained. And that was enough. The sacred no longer appeared in visions or dreams. It appeared in routine, in making food, in finishing work honestly, in resting without guilt. Jung wrote that modern humans suffer because they look for transcendence where meaning is already waiting. The man stopped searching. He lived. The shadow had changed its voice. It no longer shouted. It whispered. A subtle discomfort, a quiet warning, a nudge toward truth. The man trusted it, not blindly, but respectfully. The shadow was no longer behind him. It walked beside him. Time passed. The urgency faded. The man no longer felt the need to arrive anywhere. He was already present. Jung believed the second half of life was not about achievement, but about meaning. The man understood now. There were things he never resolved, relationships left unfinished, dreams unrealized, questions unanswered, and he let them be. Wholeness did not require completion, only honesty. The mask was never the enemy. It was a beginning. The shadow was never evil. It was truth in exile, and the self was never something to achieve. It was something to return to. Again, and again, and again. No witnesses, no applause, no ending, only life. Lived consciously. In the end, there was nothing left to resolve. No lesson to extract, no identity to defend, no mask to improve. The man stood quietly in his life, not watching himself, not judging himself, not performing, just present. The mask lay somewhere behind him, unbroken, unused. The shadow rested at his feet, not looming, not demanding, simply there. Breathing became ordinary. Time slowed. Nothing extraordinary happened. And that was the sign that the work was complete. He did not feel enlightened. He felt human. And for the first time, that was enough. There came a moment so small, it almost went unnoticed. No realization, no certainty, no surge of meaning, just a quiet inner movement. A simple yes. Yes to uncertainty. Yes to imperfection. Yes to the limits of being human. The man no longer asked life to confirm him. He confirmed himself by showing up. That was all. And it was enough. The work did not end in solitude. It ended in return. The man stepped back into the world, not as a hero, not as a teacher, not as a symbol, but as a participant. He spoke when needed, listened when uncertain, acted when responsible. Nothing announced his change, but everything carried it. And if this journey through the mask and shadow has touched something inside you, if you've noticed your own shadow or glimpsed the face beneath, then consider joining this journey further, like the video to acknowledge the work your own psyche is doing, and subscribe, so that each new story can guide you a little deeper into the mysteries of the mind, the self, and the human experience. Remember, the path is not about applause, but about showing up for yourself. And together we can walk it quietly, consciously, and without masks.